Sharing.
Recording is on.
There we go. There it is. Okay. Hello, and welcome to our virtual discussion of author Kay Jennings' Midnight Beach. We have Kay Jennings here to read from her new mystery novel. As a reminder, you can purchase this book through orcabooks.com, and I will leave a link for purchase in the chat box on the left of the screen. Let me just do that now while I remember to do it. There we go. All right. So you can get it there. And we also have some copies in store at 315 Fifth Avenue Southeast. Native Oregonian Kay Jennings was born in Southwest Oregon in a small town not unlike her fictional Port Stirling. She currently lives in Estacada, Oregon, with her husband, Steve, a technology entrepreneur. After a lengthy career in corporate communications, Jennings debuted her Port Stirling mystery series with Shallow Waters, which is this one right here, with Shallow Waters. Midnight Beach is the second novel in that series. We will start with a reading by Kay from the book, and then we will have a little discussion with her. We advise to press the tile view button at the bottom of your screen to see Kay full screen. We plan to record this event, so if you don't want to appear on video, please keep your cameras disabled. I just got to let you know legally. You can do this at the bottom of your screen. Also, make sure to enter your name if you want. Please keep your mics muted most of the time. We will be having a little giveaway toward the end, so then you can turn your mics off because there'll be a little trivia question. And yeah, Kay, I give the floor to you.
Okay, thanks, Jonah. Thanks for joining us today. We were just talking about we're having a pretty good storm down here in Oregon, and I live out in the country, and I hope I don't lose you all, but for now we're looking pretty good. Before I just read you a section from a scene from Midnight Beach, I want to tell you just a little bit about myself, since I'm out of your area somewhat. I worked in corporate communications for a really long time for companies like Nike, and I worked in Oregon tourism to help promote our great state. And I've been a vice president of marketing at a healthcare hospital system. And I've always written, but I've always written for other people. I got paid for doing public relations and marketing and lots of corporate communications on behalf of some really great companies around our Northwest region. And I worked, one of my last paid jobs was as a sports reporter. I worked for Bleacher Report, which is an online sports site that started in Corvallis, Oregon, between two friends who wanted to keep up with their favorite teams in the area. And one of them was a Washington Husky, and one of them was an Oregon State Beaver, and they joined together and formed this little company. And I got involved with them early. I used to cover Pac-12 football, and then they moved me over to the NFL side, and I wrote and helped a lot of the younger sports writers that came on to write about football. And then about 2 years ago, they sold this little dinky company to Turner Sports, Ted Turner and his outfit, for $200 million. So if you're thinking you have a great idea, do what those two guys did. And they turned it in, and now it's this international fabulous site. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys that I wrote and helped with. But as soon as that ended, I decided, it's my turn to write what I want to write. And I've always been a big mystery reader personally. I read everything. I read nonfiction. I read newspapers and magazines, but I read a lot of mystery. It's always been my first choice. I'm particularly obsessed with British mysteries. I think, after all, they invented the genre. And so I do tend to read a lot of those. I'm right now, this is just something, if you're looking for other reading ideas, or Jonah, things to order for the store. I'm obsessed with a British writer called Ellie Griffiths, and she writes a series called Ruth Galloway. And it's been through this whole COVID thing, if I get really, start feeling sorry for myself or down in the dumps, it's like, get me an Ellie Griffiths book and what's next in her series. She's got a bunch of them. So that's what I love to read. And I thought, okay, then if I'm going to write for myself, I'm going to start with the mystery. And one day, my husband and I were walking on the beach in Bandon, Oregon, which is very southwest part of Oregon, a very rugged, wild part of the state. It's become famous lately because the guy who invented Hallmark and lives in Chicago came and built a Scottish Links golf course down there, Bandon Dunes, and it became a world-class golf course. And I think there's now 3 or 4 of them. People fly in from all over the world to play golf there. So it's not quite as quiet and rugged as it was when I grew up there, because now they have a lot of visitors, a lot of tourists to that area, but it's still a very remote part of the state. And one day my husband and I were down there just visiting some old friends from home and walking on the beach in Bandon. And I pointed to a house up on the bluff and I said, a very bad thing happened in that house when I was a kid. And I told him the story and he's like, why don't you write that? It's a fascinating story. And so that became Shallow Waters, my first book. I thought I was just writing this story in one book. And what nobody told me about being an author is that you often fall in love with your characters when you're writing them. And that's exactly what happened to me with Shallow Waters. And so when it was finished, and I got some pretty good success with it, more than I ever dreamed would happen. And I thought, okay, now what do I do? Because I miss these people that I wrote about. And so that's what led to number 2, Midnight Beach. And it was just published in late September. And it continues the characters. The main characters, the main protagonist is a new police chief in town. And he's moved here from Dallas, Texas. He might have a little baggage of his own, which we don't really know until later on. And he continues on, as do some of his colleagues. And Midnight Beach. Okay, here comes your trivia question before I forget, because I tend to, you can tell, I'm a talker. So Midnight Beach was actually based, inspired by, but also really based, I would say, on a real life crime that happened in Bandon, Oregon in 1977. Okay. If somebody can tell me, let's see, how should we do this? Okay, here we go. I'm changing my mind as I'm doing this, if you can't tell. So the raid, it was a drug raid that happened in Coos County, Oregon in 1977. And it was called the Cigale drug raid. And that's spelled Cigale. Okay, Cigale, Cigale. If anybody can Google that and look it up and tell me where that name came from. What is the name? What does Cigale stand for? What does it mean? That's what the story was originally inspired by. Okay, so we'll wait till the end now. there are, this one was, it's fiction. I want to make that very clear. However, the idea from the story came from a current sheriff in Coos County, Oregon, which is where Bandon is. And he was an actual rookie in the sheriff's department in 1977. And this guy laid on the beach on his stomach in the cold and rain for 5 hours the night that this happened. So he was an eyewitness to the whole thing. So obviously he was a great resource as I started writing the story. I embellished it a lot because that's what's fun about being a writer. You get to make up stuff and write whatever you want. And I did embellish it a lot. I added 2 other elements to the story that did not really happen and were not real. But I just got notes from some local people who remember the event, and they said, you know, for a writer, you got it kind of good. So I consider that to be a major compliment. It's an exciting story. And it was one that it wasn't, I can't say it was fun to write. This book is not a cozy mystery, if you know what I mean by that. This is not like Murder, She Wrote and this nice kind of soft, easy thing. This is a tougher story. And Shallow Waters, if you haven't read it, I would suggest that you read it first. You're going to have a little better understanding of the main characters in Midnight Beach. They are both standalone stories, and so they have a beginning, middle, and end, and you know who did it at the end. But as a writer, right now, I'm really trying to work hard on character development. I want the readers to love these characters as much as I do now, and they have to grow and kind of change naturally. If characters don't change, to me, that becomes stagnation, and I don't want that for my characters. So I think if you're just new to me, and thank you, I hope you'll start with Shallow Waters and then go on. I do think I've improved as a novelist. I've always been a good writer, so it wasn't that, but there are certain things, particularly in the mystery genre, that you must do, or readers will be ticked off. And you have to learn kind of how to write in that genre, and I think in this format. And I think I did a really much better job at Midnight Beach at that. I think it was kind of a Shallow Waters was a learning experience. Although to this day, Shallow Waters has the best reviews of both books. So I think it's early days for Midnight Beach, and I'm hoping it achieves that same level. People seem to like them. Okay. So I'll just read you. The main character in both books is our new police chief, and his name is Matt Horning. He's from Dallas, Texas. He was a detective in the police department down there and ran into some trouble. And I'm not going to tell you what it was because that will ruin the suspense in Shallow Waters, and we don't want to do that. But he's come on now, and in Shallow Waters, he actually, on the day he arrived in Port Stirling, he had the city's first murder in decades that he had to deal with. And so he kind of jumped right in, and that's where Shallow Waters starts. Midnight Beach takes place, I think it's about 3 months later now, and lo and behold, another dead body shows up in a rather gruesome fashion in a marsh just outside of town in Port Stirling. And so this is kind of how Matt Horning finds this out. Okay.
What
Midnight.
page are you reading from?
Sorry.
What page are you reading from? I want to follow along.
I'm starting on page 3.
Okay.
I don't want to gross anybody out with the first paragraph because it's pretty grim. So I'm on page 3. Okay. Towel drying his hair, Matt stepped out onto the white terry bath rug just as his phone jingled on the vanity. He hesitated for a split second because at 7:20 a.m. it was a little early for a phone call, and it must be something bad. Just like a cop, imagine the worst. He jumped for the phone, answered, and heard silence, then a cough on the other end. Chief, this is Milton, the 911 dispatcher up at City Hall, finally said the caller. Hi, Milton. I remember you. What can I do for you on this beautiful Friday morning? Well, you're not going to believe this. I don't believe this. Milton pushed his black frames up. They kept sliding down his nose. What is it, son? Just got a call from a county bird counter. Says he found a body and a head, Milton choked out. Sorry, I'm not tracking that. Please say it again. Matt held the phone closer to his ear. This guy says he's out near Twisty River and he found a dead person. Only the body and the head are separated. I see, said Matt slowly. Where is he? Do you know that wildlife refuge close to where the Twisty feeds into the ocean? That's where he is. He's scared shitless. I've got him holding on the other line. What should I do? This is important, Milton, and you're doing great. Tell him to stay put, don't touch anything, and watch for my city police car. I'll be there in under 10. 10 minutes, sir? Yes, 10 minutes. Please tell him to wave when he sees my car, okay? Oh, Milton, and tell him to not call anyone else. Got it. Milton hung up. Matt threw down his towel and grabbed the first pair of jeans and a sweater he could find. He snatched his badge, his briefcase, and his jacket off its hook near the front door. Just before he reached for the doorknob, he jogged back to the bedroom and unlocked his Colt 1911 pistol with its box elder barrel custom grip from the small safe deep in his closet. Then he ran for his police car parked in the gravel driveway in front of his house. The unfinished bowl of yogurt sat forlornly on his kitchen table. So he's off and running. Okay. And yes, we have another murder in Port Stirling.
Thank you for reading.
It's a short snippet.
I liked it. So thank you for sharing that bit of your book with us, Kay. And now I have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Shoot.
All right. So I think you kind of covered already kind of what why you became a mystery writer. So I want to rephrase the first question a little bit. You mentioned you were a marketing person. Could you tell me like what marketing writing skills might have carried over to novel writing? How has your writing kind of been influenced by that background?
Well, that's a really good question, Jonah. I think it's carried over more in the business of being an author, because these days you have to do this, which I love, by the way. It's no problem for me at all. I love doing these events. I do miss in-person signings. It was so much fun the first few months after Shallow Waters to go out and meet a bunch of readers and all that. But we work with what we have for now. I do think in marketing, you learn, at least over the length of a career, how to really relate to people and read them. And you have to know what's in it for people? What do they want? What can you help them achieve? And so I think that helped me, because when I really sat down and got real serious about writing Shallow Waters, I thought, what's going to compel a complete stranger to pick up this book? And more importantly, how can I make sure that they have a good experience, that they enjoy it? And so I think that always kind of keeping your eye on who the customer or the client is, I think those skills translate no matter what you do. And then once the book was written, I quickly learned that I had a pretty good advantage over a lot of other writers who hate the marketing, hate it, hate it, hate it. They don't want to do PR. They don't want to talk to reporters. They don't know how to approach reporters. And I just had a nice write-up in the Oregonian a couple of weeks ago before Halloween. And to me, just knowing how to write a press release. And it's different when you're talking about yourself. It's a lot harder, I'll tell you that. But I still think today, in today's world, it's even more important. And I tell new authors all the time, hey, I did this at the age of 70. You can do it. You're just starting out. Just get out there, and you just really have to learn that it's okay to tell people about your product and that you're proud of your product. And you have to do marketing. Even people who have deals with the top 5 publishers still have to do their own marketing for the most part. The days of signing with an agent and a big publishing house in New York are kind of gone. They really are. You can't expect them to do everything on your behalf anymore. So it's a skill that's served me pretty well.
I love that, honestly. And I will say, yeah, marketing yourself is super, it's like 10 times harder for some reason.
Hard.
Oh, it's me now. I have to talk.
Yeah. It's like, what do you mean you're going to have the camera on me?
That's great. Honestly, I love that. So you kind of went over how this book was inspired by real events, but could you go into that real event a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, the first one, Shallow Waters, was just a childhood story that did happen in Coos County, but was really swept under the rug. And our parents at the time really tried to protect all of us kids, because a classmate of ours was involved. And so that one, I completely fictionalized it. I changed everything. The family, the business where they lived, everything about it I changed, because it just wasn't, unless I was ready to write about true crime, and I wasn't, and I'm not interested in that. That one was just a very vague inspiration. Midnight Beach, however, really started, I heard the story first from a former classmate who lives in Bandon still, and he had told me about it. And then I ran into a BLM employee once on some government property down in Coos County, and I said to him, was the Sigali raid anywhere around here? And he said, you're standing right on the spot. And so and he had a scrapbook with all the stories. And so that really got me going. And it's a great story on its own. And then I think I've added a little bit of the relationship between some of my characters and an additional element to the story that was not actually present with the real crime. And the interesting thing about it was they still to this day do not know who funded this operation that the authorities uncovered in 1977. And there's lots of rumors around in the law enforcement community down there. They all have their own theory, but I ran down a few of them and they're just crazy. It doesn't make any sense. So I had to create the villain. But that part was really fun too. And there's still a little question when you get to the end of it, maybe, but we'll see what happens in book 3.
That's so fascinating that you have this kind of personal connection to at least the first book, Shallow Waters. I don't think I've ever heard of a murder mystery writer, like maybe not lived through the actual murder mystery, but like lived in the same city as it was happening, like in that same world. So that's amazing. That's really
an even funnier story about that, Jonah, is that when I realized what I'd gotten myself into with the murder mystery, I know nothing about law enforcement or guns or anything. And so I got together with a former cop up here in the Portland area and just said, can I get together with you and just brainstorm and ask you a few questions? And one of the questions I asked him was, what actually happens when a body is found on the beach at Bandon, Oregon? What would happen? Who would come and how would it get going? And he said, you know what? A good buddy of mine works for the Oregon State Police. He's a trooper. He covers that area. We're going to call him. And so I remember we were sitting in a Starbucks in downtown Portland, and he called and he got this buddy of his on the phone. And when I started talking to the state cop, I told him, I said, here's what I'm doing. I'm writing the story. In real life, it really happened in Coos County, and it's going to be kind of the basis for the series going forward. And I'll never forget his response. He laughed and laughed and laughed, and he said, boy, have you picked the right county. There's a lot of violent crime on the south coast of Oregon.
Wow.
So who knew? So maybe Midnight Beach is just number 2. I don't know for sure. I know what I'm working on for number 3, and it's all fiction. It's all up in my head. But I've heard since then from other friends in the area that say, hey, did you know about this story? Check this out. This would make a really good book. So we'll see. I think I have lots of material is what I'm saying.
Another question. So you kind of also talked about how Midnight Beach fits in with the rest of the series, but can you talk about what you are working on right now?
Well, yes. And first of all, I'm doing, I don't know if you've ever heard of NaNoWriMo, which is the event, for those of you who don't know, the month of November, writers started out all over the country. Now it's all over the world. I have a friend in Spain who's doing it. The month of November, the goal is to write 50,000 words between November 1 and 30th. And I've never participated before because it wasn't the right timing for me. Last time I was editing Shallow Waters, and it just wasn't the right time. This time, I just had started book number 3 in my Port Stirling series, and I thought, okay, maybe this will inspire me. Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to make 50,000 words. I'm behind. But I'm behind because I'm doing stuff like this, which is fun. But I have to say, it has inspired me. I've sat down and I've written a little bit on book number 3 every day since November 1. And what I'm writing about is, we recently, I don't know if you heard that much about this up in the Olympia area or not, but in September, right after Labor Day, we had some very serious wildfires down here in the state of Oregon that burned virtually, a third of the state, I think. Well, the biggest one was about 30 miles from my house. And we in Estacada, Oregon, which is about 30 miles or so southeast of Portland, kind of on the on the slopes of headed up to Mount Hood and the Coast Range. We had to evacuate our home one night at 9 p.m. We got alerts from our county, and we had gone from level 1, which is be aware that there's a fire somewhere, to level 2, which is get ready. And that happened at about 6 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And I was looking out my window to the south where the fire was, and the sky was getting orange and purple and brown and very scary looking. And I said to my husband, we're going to go stay with our friends tonight. And he said, oh, no. And I said, this thing is going to go to level 3, which is get out now at about midnight. Do you want to be running out in the middle of the night? And so we left smartly at, I think it was around 9 o'clock by the time we finally got together, went to stay with friends in Lake Oswego. And at about midnight that night, they moved the Estacada area to level 3, which is get out now. The fires ended up about half a mile from the downtown core of Estacada. It was very, very scary. And so we had to stay away a week. We came back, there was still this heavy smoke and ash and horrible things in the air. But our property, thankfully, was saved. The fire did touch down less than half a mile from us, and just on the other side of our road. And so the reason I'm telling you this is that whole experience got me thinking about natural disasters. And wildfire was still too raw for me to write about. But it made me start thinking, what would really happen? What natural disasters could happen on the Oregon coast that my characters could deal with? Well, it's very obvious. We're overdue for the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. So the working title for book 3, right now anyway, is Code Tsunami. And there's going to be, it starts off, the first chapter was terrifying to me. I was writing it, and I reread it again just this morning and went back and corrected some things. And so my characters are going to have to deal with not only a dead body, which is about to appear, that's going to be a decades-old murder that the earthquake and tsunami uncover. They have a natural disaster, they have a dead body, and then, oh yes, there's a little bit of a leftover relationship from Midnight Beach. And I won't say anything more about that. So there's a lot going on in book 3, and it's going to be really fun the next few months here to tie together all these loose end stories. But it's very different. I mean, the characters are continuing, they're growing, but it's a very different story from what I've dealt with in the first 2 books. So so far I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm not going to make 50,000 words by the end of November, but I'll be a lot further along.
I love that. Also, I love the direction that you're going to take the 3rd book. It's not just another murder mystery. It's a murder mystery plus earthquake, tsunami, natural disasters.
Well, down here, we all refer to it as, when is the big one going to come?
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to be in Port Stirling, Oregon when this one hits. Trust me. Oh, the research on it is, I have to say, it is terrifying. If we do get like a 9-point something earthquake, it's going to be bad.
We'll just cross that bridge when we come to
it. That's what my husband says. Let's don't worry about it quite yet. But I am going to pack my earthquake preparedness kit, which I've been putting off for years now, and I'm doing it.
This writing this book made you consider doing that?
Packing the kit?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely doing it. I'm doing it this weekend. I've just been reading. There's all this research, and actually, the University of Washington did a really important study a few years ago about what will happen in the Pacific Northwest when the big one hits. And I got a hold of their research, and it even gives you how many households are going to be displaced, how many buildings are flattened, how long it's going to take to get water and sewer working again. And this is not nighttime reading. It's very frightening.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to think about it just.
Yeah, no. And where you are too, you don't, it's the first chapter is going to scare you. It just is.
Well, changing gears a little bit. I know you asked a trivia question earlier. So we have one person here. Christy. Christy, did you happen to Google the Sagale raid?
Sagali.
Sorry.
Right. I couldn't find that specifically, but then I found something that was it said, and then I couldn't remember what the question was, the actual question about the raid, but what I found it said was that there was a dispute over beach access leads to a very large drug bust is what the headline that I read.
That's it. You win, Christy. It was a Panamanian registered ship was where the name came from. The ship they captured was actually called the Sagali. And the drug raid, it happened in 1977. And it's still, all these decades later, one of the largest drug raids on the West Coast as far as the amount of goods and cash and everything that they got. So, but just know that it's not the whole story in Midnight Beach either, because like I said, it's fiction. So we had took a lot of liberties with it.
Let's see.
So let me show you the tote bag.
I'm trying to figure out how to get the tote bag.
Here it is.
Christy.
100% cotton.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Christy, do you?
Oh, is that the prize?
Yeah, that's the prize.
I didn't realize there was a prize. Exciting.
Do you want me to? Let's see. Kay, would you mind if I put your email in the chat box and Christy can email you their personal information?
That's fine. Or
Okay.
that, or I could send it to Orca Books and she can pop in if she's local and pick it up.
That might work too. Christy, do you want to do that?
We could totally do that. It might take me a while. I'm just out in Centralia, so
okay.
I can do you. I just don't want you to have to keep it in a corner somewhere until I show up eventually.
How about Christy?
Go ahead.
I was thinking, Christy, you could email us.
Oh wait, no, I have a solution.
Okay, what's your solution?
Claire knows X. X is my coworker.
What?
Do you Claire at Orca?
Yeah.
Knows X.
Oh, okay.
And X is my coworker.
Okay.
So if you get
their name is just X, right? The letter X?
Yes.
Okay. I think Francis also knows them. So there we go. We have a personal connection.
Yeah. So
okay.
The power of local bookstores.
No, seriously. I was if you get it to this person, they could bring it to our office.
There you go.
Okay, so I'll just send it to Orca Books?
Yeah.
And
okay.
I will send you our information. Send Kay shipping info.
That's great. And I'm going to be doing this on Monday because I did a giveaway on my Facebook page today. So I've got some more tote bags to get out there to good readers.
Yay!
I use mine to bring books back from my library and my local bookstore. And I also use it to bring celery and apples sometimes. So I hope you enjoy it, Christine. Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for being here. Thank you for joining us, Kay. You can find Kay's book, Midnight Beach, at orcabooks.com. And we still have some copies at the front of the store. Here's one of them. And yeah, this video will be up in less than a week, hopefully. Yeah. So
Great.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. This is fun, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Happy reading. There's nothing else to do. We might as well read, huh?
I'm going to press stop record.